Disclaimer: this story is a work of fiction created for entertainment purposes only. It does not promote or encourage any inappropriate behavior and follows YouTube's community guidelines. The sound of distant thunder rolled across the sky as I sat quietly in my room, staring out the window. Rain drizzled softly against the glass, blurring the world outside into watercolor shapes. Everything felt muted, both inside and out, except my heart, which beat a little too fast, a little too loud, as if trying to tell me something I didn't quite understand yet. I wasn't expecting anyone to come in. The house was usually quiet during this time, with everyone off doing their own thing. So when the door creaked open slowly, I jumped a little. It was him, my stepbrother, Alex. He leaned against the frame, his eyes scanning my face like he could see right through the mask I was trying to wear. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. That question shouldn't have mattered. But the way he asked it, gentle, sincere, made my throat tighten. I forced a small smile, nodding. "Yeah. Just tired." He didn't look convinced. He stepped into the room and closed the door behind him, letting the quiet settle back over us. There was always something different about Alex. Ever since our parents got married, he had this calm, steady energy that made people want to talk to him, even me, and I wasn't exactly the sharing type. We weren't close at first. In fact, we barely spoke for months after our parents blended our families. He had his own world, and I had mine. But slowly, without realizing it, the distance began to shrink. Little things, shared glances during family dinners, awkward but funny conversations in the kitchen, the occasional teasing that didn't feel mean, started building something between us. Something I never expected. That day, though, something felt different. There was a tension in the air that I couldn't explain. I didn't know if it was just me or if he felt it too. He sat down beside me on the edge of my bed, not too close, but not far either. "I heard you crying earlier," he said, almost in a whisper. I froze. I thought I'd been quiet. I thought no one had heard. "You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to," he added quickly, his voice calm, like he was trying not to scare me away. A million emotions swirled inside me. Embarrassment, surprise, frustration. But more than that, relief. That someone noticed. That someone cared. "I didn't mean to," I murmured. "It's just been a lot lately." He nodded slowly, like he understood without needing all the details. Then silence. Not the awkward kind, more like a pause in a song, the moment before the next note plays. He looked down at his hands for a moment, then back at me. "I worry about you," he said softly. "You don't say much, but I see it. You carry everything alone." That was the moment I looked at him differently. Not just as a stepbrother. Not just as someone who lived in the same house. But someone who truly saw me, even the parts one tried to hide. I swallowed hard. "I'm just trying to get through each day. You know how it is." He gave a small nod. "I do. But you don't have to do it alone." We sat there for a long minute, just breathing, letting the rain fill the spaces our words couldn't. Then, without warning, he leaned forward and kissed my forehead. It wasn't dramatic or anything. Just a gentle, quiet gesture that felt like it stopped time. My breath caught in my throat. I didn't know how to react. My heart thudded so loudly I was sure he could hear it. When he pulled back, there was something in his eyes, serious, almost nervous. And then, he said something that made my world tilt completely off its axis. "I don't know when it started, but I think I care about you more than I should." My mind went blank. My ears buzzed. I didn't know what to say. I didn't even know what I felt. All I knew was that those words hung in the air between us like lightning waiting to strike. And just like that, everything changed. I stared at him, my lips parted, my heart racing. His gaze held mine, waiting, bracing, for my reaction. But I couldn't speak. Not yet. Because deep down, I knew that whatever I said next would change everything between us. Forever. To be continued. The room felt impossibly still after he said those words. My heart pounded in my chest, and I could barely process what I'd just heard. I think I care about you more than I should. It echoed over and over in my head like a song stuck on repeat. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but no words came out. Alex didn't move. He just sat there, eyes searching mine for a reaction. But how could I react when I wasn't even sure how I felt? Confused? Definitely. Shocked? Without a doubt. But buried beneath all of that, there was something else, something I didn't want to admit to myself just yet. He finally looked away, rubbing the back of his neck like he regretted saying it. I shouldn't have said that. I don't know what came over me. I still couldn't speak. The weight of everything was pressing down on me, the sudden confession, the way he looked at me, the kiss on my forehead that still lingered like warmth under my skin. He stood up slowly, clearly uncomfortable now, and took a few steps toward the door. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Forget I said anything." And just like that, he was gone. I sat there alone, the rain still falling outside, except now the silence felt even louder than before. I wrapped my arms around myself, unsure if I was trying to hold in the emotions or keep them from spilling out. The thing is, I always thought I knew what kind of relationship Alex and I had. Friendly, sure. Growing closer, yes. But nothing like this. Not something that crossed the invisible lines we were supposed to stay behind. But now that he had said those words, my mind kept flashing back to moments I hadn't thought much of before. The way he always seemed to be around when I needed someone. How he noticed things no one else did, like when I wasn't eating properly or when I had a bad day but didn't say anything. The way he'd make me laugh without trying too hard, or how he'd sit next to me during family movie nights, closer than anyone else ever did. Had he been feeling this way the whole time? And if so, what did that mean for me? Later that evening, I avoided dinner. I couldn't sit across from him, pretending nothing had happened. Instead, I stayed in my room, lying on my bed and staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of everything. My phone buzzed with a message. I didn't even have to look to know it was from him. "Alex, I didn't mean to make things weird. Just forget it, okay?" But how was I supposed to forget something like that? I stared at the screen for a long time, typing and deleting a reply more times than I could count. Every version of my response felt wrong. I couldn't lie and say it didn't matter. But I wasn't ready to be honest either. I didn't reply. The next day, I tried to act normal, going through my routine like nothing had happened. But inside, I was anything but okay. And of course, fate being what it is, we crossed paths in the hallway. He looked tired. Maybe he hadn't slept well either. When our eyes met, there was a hesitation in his step, like he didn't know if he should say something or just walk past. "Hey," he said, finally breaking the silence. I nodded, pretending to be in a hurry. "Hey." It was awkward. Uncomfortable. But beneath all that, I sensed that he was still holding something back. For the rest of the day, my thoughts spiraled. What did he really mean by what he said? Did he regret it? Or was he hoping I'd say something back? By the third day, things still felt tense. He was keeping his distance, and I didn't blame him. But the space between us felt heavier than silence. I found myself replaying our conversation over and over again. Not just what he said, but how he said it. The way he looked at me. The way I felt. And it scared me. Not just because of the situation, but because a part of me didn't hate it. That realization made everything more complicated. It wasn't just his words that unsettled me, it was what they uncovered in me. Feelings I'd pushed down or never fully admitted. I didn't know what to do with them. I didn't even know if I should do anything. All I knew was that the connection between us was different now. We couldn't pretend to be the same anymore, even if we tried. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized things had been shifting for a while. His presence felt safe. Familiar. Comforting. But now, that comfort came with uncertainty. Every moment we were alone felt like walking on a tightrope. I didn't want to say the wrong thing, but I didn't want to ignore what was happening either. Eventually, I knew we'd have to talk again. We couldn't leave things hanging like this forever. But what would I say when that moment came? I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure of anything anymore, except that something between us had changed. And there was no going back. To be continued. The following few days passed in a blur, and yet every hour dragged as if time itself was unsure how to move forward. Everything looked the same, the kitchen, the hallways, the clinking of dishes and casual family chatter, but under that normal surface, something had shifted. And I couldn't ignore it anymore. Every time I heard Alex's footsteps, my body tensed. Not out of fear, but anticipation. Would he talk to me again? Would he pretend nothing had ever happened? The not knowing was the hardest part. We weren't just avoiding each other anymore, we were holding back something bigger, something unspoken that pressed against both of us like an invisible wall. I caught him glancing at me during breakfast one morning. It was quick, almost careful, but it was enough to send my thoughts spiraling all over again. That single look brought everything back, the quiet moment in my room, the way his voice softened when he said those words, and the warmth of his hand when it brushed mine unintentionally. It was like my world had become two parts now, the part before that day, and everything after. That afternoon, I decided to take a walk, hoping some fresh air would help me think clearly. The neighborhood was quiet, a few birds chirping in the distance, but my head was far from peaceful. I sat on the swings at the empty park, thinking back to how things used to be with Alex. Before all this, there were moments when we used to talk freely, about school, annoying relatives, random dreams. I'd never realized how much I leaned on those small moments, how much they had started to matter. Maybe that was the problem. Somewhere along the way, those harmless chats had started to mean more. Maybe not just to him. I thought about our family. Our parents were happy together, finally settled after messy pasts. Would they sense something strange if things between Alex and me became even more distant? What if they already had? The last thing I wanted was to cause any awkwardness or tension in the house. But hiding how I felt was starting to eat away at me. Later that evening, just as I was pouring a glass of water in the kitchen, I turned and found him standing in the doorway. My heart jumped, but I tried not to show it. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice low. I hesitated, then nodded. We walked outside to the porch, where the night air felt cooler than usual. Crickets chirped softly in the background, and for a few seconds, neither of us spoke. "I didn't mean to mess things up," he said, finally. "You've been quiet, and I don't blame you." I looked at him. He seemed sincere, tired, yes, but not regretting what he said. More like regretting the silence that followed. "I've just been thinking," I admitted. "A lot. And I don't know how to feel yet." He nodded like he understood. "I've been thinking too. I keep going over everything in my head. And I know this isn't normal. I know it's complicated." I stayed quiet. He wasn't wrong. It was complicated. But hearing him say it out loud made it feel more real. "I don't want things to get weird between us," he added. But I also can't lie about what I feel. There it was again, that quiet honesty I wasn't ready for. Before I could reply, the porch light flicked on behind us. Our mom stepped out with a soft smile, holding a bowl of fruit. "You two okay out here?" she asked. We both nodded in sync. She didn't press further, just handed me the bowl and turned back inside. Once she was gone, Alex glanced at me again. "You don't have to say anything now," he said gently. "I just needed you to know." I meant every word. He stood up and walked back inside, leaving me on the porch with my thoughts. The bowl in my hands felt heavier than it should have. Because deep down, I wasn't just questioning what he felt. I was starting to question what I felt too. And that terrified me more than anything. To be continued. The days that followed were quiet, but not in a peaceful way. It was the kind of quiet that came before a storm, the calm on the outside, but full of pressure building beneath the surface. Alex and I barely spoke, but every time we crossed paths, the tension was there, thick and impossible to ignore. I could feel his presence even before I saw him, like something in the air shifted when he was near. I didn't know how to act, or what to say. And honestly, I wasn't even sure what I wanted to say. I kept playing everything over in my head, his words, his expression, the look in his eyes when he said he cared about me more than he should. Part of me wanted to forget it all, to rewind time and go back to when things were simple. But a louder part of me couldn't stop wondering, what if this wasn't just something to forget? One evening, I was in the living room folding laundry when he walked in. The TV was on, playing something neither of us were watching. He sat on the other side of the couch, not too close, but not far either. The silence stretched for a long time. Then he spoke, soft, like he didn't want to scare me off. "I can't keep pretending like nothing's changed." I paused, folding a towel slowly, my hands shaking just slightly. "I've tried," he said. "I've tried giving you space, but I still feel the same. And it's messing with my head." I swallowed hard, feeling my heart thud in my chest. "Alex," he turned to face me fully, his voice low but steady. "If this is wrong, if it makes you uncomfortable, just say it, and I'll stop. I just need to know where you stand. Because I can't keep guessing." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. My mind raced. I wasn't ready to answer, but I knew the moment had come. The line we'd been tiptoeing around for weeks was finally right in front of us. Before I could respond, we heard footsteps upstairs, our parents. Voices, laughter, the normal sounds of family life. But suddenly, it felt like those sounds didn't belong to us anymore. Not in this moment. Because what was happening between Alex and me, it was something no one else could understand. He looked at me one last time. "Please. Just tell me the truth." My heart pounded. My lips parted. But then, I heard footsteps coming down the stairs. And everything stopped. To be continued. The footsteps grew louder, echoing down the stairs like warning bells. Alex immediately leaned back, putting space between us, his expression guarded again. My mouth went dry. I hadn't answered him yet, and now the moment was gone, or at least, paused. Our mom appeared in the doorway, smiling like she hadn't just interrupted the most intense moment of my life. She asked something about dinner, something completely ordinary, but the weight in the room made it feel surreal. I nodded without thinking, my voice caught in my throat. Alex gave a quick, polite reply, and she disappeared again, unaware of what she'd just stepped into. As soon as she was gone, I turned to him, ready to speak. But before I could form the words, his phone buzzed. He looked down, and whatever was on the screen made his face pale just slightly. I noticed it too, his jaw tightened, his eyes narrowed. I waited for him to say something, but he didn't. What is it? I asked, unable to hide the worry in my voice. He hesitated, then finally muttered, "It's her." Her? I repeated, confused. He looked up at me, eyes conflicted. My ex. She's in town. She wants to talk. My stomach dropped. Just like that, everything I'd been trying to sort through got tangled all over again. Not only was I trying to make sense of my own feelings, but now someone from his past was suddenly back. And not just anyone, someone he clearly hadn't fully let go of. I didn't know what hurt more, the timing, or the fact that part of me felt threatened by a person I didn't even know. Alex stood up slowly, shoving his phone in his pocket. I don't know what she wants. But I think I need to find out. And just like that, he walked out, leaving more questions behind than I was ready to face. To be continued. It had been 2 days since Alex left to meet his ex, and I hadn't heard a single word from him. The silence was louder than anything he could have said. I tried convincing myself that it didn't matter, that whatever he felt was just confusion. But deep down, I couldn't ignore how much his absence hurt. And what hurt more was the thought that maybe he had changed his mind, maybe I was never really part of the equation. That evening, just as I was closing my bedroom door, I heard his voice downstairs. He was back. I hesitated, heart racing, then made my way slowly to the living room. He was sitting alone, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor like he'd been there a while. He looked up the moment he heard me. She didn't come to fix anything, he said quietly. She wanted to get back together. I swallowed hard, afraid of what he'd say next. I told her no. That one sentence made the air return to my lungs. I told her I couldn't pretend to feel something I don't anymore, not when everything in me wants to be here. I stepped closer, not speaking, just listening. I know it's complicated, he said. But I also know what I feel when I'm around you. And I won't keep running from that. Before I could respond, he pulled something out of his pocket and placed it on the table between us. It was a letter. From our parents. Addressed to both of us. I stared at it, confused, then picked it up and unfolded it. My eyes scanned the page, and then stopped. The final twist hit me like a wave. Alex wasn't my stepbrother by blood. He never had been. To be continued. My hands trembled as I held the letter, reading the words over and over. It explained everything, how Alex's father had adopted him years before marrying my mom, and how there was no biological or legal link between us. They had waited to tell us, hoping it would never matter. But now it did. Alex watched me closely, unsure of what I was feeling. My emotions were tangled, shock, relief, and a strange sense of peace all mixed together. Everything suddenly made sense, why we felt so close, why we connected in ways we couldn't explain. The lines we had tiptoed around weren't even there. I looked up at him, and for the first time in weeks, I smiled. So we're not. He shook his head. No. We never were. That single truth unraveled the tension that had been building between us. The confusion, the guilt, the hesitation, it all faded. We were finally free to feel what we felt without the weight of what was expected of us. In the weeks that followed, things began to feel normal again, except this time, it was a new kind of normal. One where honesty didn't feel risky. Where our connection wasn't something to hide. Looking back, I realized that sometimes, the heart knows the truth before the facts ever come out. And while it may not always be easy, facing those emotions head-on is what brings clarity. Because love, real, complicated, unexpected love, doesn't always follow the rules. But it always finds a way.